Shabbat Shalom. This is my sabbatical beard that unfortunately morphed into a quarantine beard. You see, normally I enjoy leading Shabbat services after coming back from a vacation. On one hand, it's a reminder that my vacation is really over. But at the same time, standing on the bima, looking at my friends who join me for Shabbat, fills me with real sense of gratitude for being one of the lucky ones who loves what I'm doing for a living. But this Shabbat is different. I'm not allowed to be on the bima with my friends Rabbi Beth and Marcy. Instead, I'm talking to an iPad. With all of its virtues, the iPad gives me no feedback, it doesn't smile at me, doesn't even frown in disagreement. It does feel weird. But this is not the only reason that this Shabbat feels different. As you know, my sabbatical did not end the way I was planning. And the truth is that I'm quite sad and have a sense of loss. Loss of a full year of meticulous planning of a journey that will not happen. Loss of money that I will not get back. Loss of many hours of sleep when I had to wake up early so many mornings to run hundreds of miles in preparation for the Rome Marathon in Italy, a marathon that, like everything else, was cancelled. But the worst was my mother's tears when I called to tell her that despite my promise, we will not be joining them for Passover in Israel this year, and instead we're flying back home to Jupiter. I know I'm not alone. Many of you have similar feelings, similar fears, disappointments. My close friends had to cancel their daughter's wedding party. Friends who are ill, instead of being comforted by friends who come to visit, have to isolate themselves in their homes or hospitals. People who lost loved ones could not give them proper funerals. Instead, they have to have a brief graveside service without the presence of most of their family members and friends. In time when they really need a hug, people have to keep a distance of 6 feet from each other. This is not normal. This is not right. Our weekly portion this Shabbat couldn't have been more ironic. Its name is Vayakhel. It comes from the Hebrew word kehilah, congregation or community. Moses gathers the entire people of Israel, giving them instructions of how to build a sanctuary. This Shabbat, our sanctuaries are empty, and we are told to stay apart from each other. Judaism is a community-based religion. We have the concept of a minyan, a quorum of minimum 10 people without which we cannot perform some commandments, we cannot say some prayers. During Shabbat morning services, we often read a passage from the Mishnah that give us a list of the most important obligations that we have as individuals as well as a community, obligations we cannot fulfill under these circumstances. For example, we cannot really visit the sick, we cannot rejoice with bride and groom, we cannot attend funerals, we cannot get together to study, to worship. So what are we going to do to maintain normal life, to maintain Jewish life? Several years ago, I gave a sermon based on a book that was written by an MIT professor, Sherry Turkle. The name of the book is Alone Together, and its main argument is that even though we live today in an era that makes it so easy for us to connect with others, there is an unprecedented number of lonely people. Our thousands of friends on Facebook and hundreds of followers on Twitter gives us only a false sense of belonging and community. Instead, Professor Turkle advises us to spend less time staring at screens and more time being in the same space with other people. She is absolutely right. Only that today, being in the same space with others put us at risk. And the most important principle in Judaism is uvacharta b'chaim. You must choose life. You must be safe and healthy. So how can we be safe and at the same time maintain this sense of community that we need now more than in any other time? Well, we must use the phone and social media. I know it's not the same, but this pandemic will be over. And until it's over, we have to use all the means we have in order to maintain normal life, in order to remain part of our community. Right now, we participate in a service through live stream. Earlier this morning, Rabbi Beth again used live stream to lead Shabbat services for the preschool families. The other night, Marcy led a song session. On Tuesdays, I will start leading Torah study. It's much better to be in the same space, being able to look at each other, to touch each other. But now, we must be safe. Times like that brings out the best and worst in people. But I strongly believe that for every person who fills his garage from floor to ceiling with toilet paper, creating an unnecessary shortage only because they care for themselves, there are still hundreds of other people who are asking, how can I help? How can I support the elders, the sick people in my community without risking them or risking myself? We'll come through this pandemic. It may take a few more months, I don't really know. But in the end, we'll come out stronger and much more united as a people, as a nation. Let me conclude my message with a prayer that was written by Rabbi Naomi Levy. We're frightened, God, worried for our loved ones, worried for our world. Help us. We turn to you, seeking comfort, faith, and hope. Teach us, God, to turn our panic into patience and our fear into acts of kindness and support. Our strong must watch out for the weak, our young must care of our old. Help each one of us to do our part to hold the spread of this virus. Send strength and courage to the doctors and nurses in the front lines of this battle. Fortify them with the full force of their healing powers. Send wisdom and insight to the scientists working day and night across the world to discover healing treatments. Bless their efforts, God. Fill our leaders with the wisdom and courage to choose wisely and act quickly. Help us, God, to see that we're one world, one people who will rise above this pandemic together. Send us health, God. Watch over us. Grace us with your love. Bless us with your healing light. Hear us, God. Heal us, God. Amen. And Shabbat Shalom.